Guys, good Wednesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Today, presented by Scott Morris of Ross. Ross is just an A-plus company, Ross Mortgage Corporation, a brand that you can trust for financing with your home. Scott's phone has been blowing up. We saw him come into the studio here, making customers happy yet again. Scott Morris in a matter of moments. The Wednesday edition is a lively panel, and today's features a good man, Woody Fincham, president and founder of Fincham and Associates. You'll meet him in a matter of moments. This guy has gifted us a couple of bottles of Buffalo Trace, and that makes the host of this network quite happy. Neil Williamson, the bourbon that's in studio right now would make you smile, Sir Neil Williamson. Judah Wickhauer, let's go to the studio camera and the foreshot, and we'll welcome our friend, a brother from another mother, Keith Smith, to the show. How are you, my friend?
Good, doing great, and it's just, like I said on the intro, I'm excited about this conversation. I was kind of got up a little extra early to study a little bit extra hard, because when you have somebody like Woody Fincham at the table, you need to up your game a little bit on your knowledge. I was Facebooking out to different groups, tune in, ask questions, and get engaged. Here's your opportunity to ask an expert a ton of questions. So I'll let Jerry kick it off and do the intros to everybody, and then we'll jump in with a couple of questions.
Let's start with Woody. I mean, the benevolent bourbon offerer right here. The guy comes in with 2 bottles for us. Introduce yourself to everybody that's watching the show. Susan Steinmart, before we start, says one of the few experts on community land trust homes. He's super experienced with Charlottesville and Richmond properties, a guy you can trust. The props is already coming in for
So, Woody, I have to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
I need to jump in. Happy birthday, Susan. Today's
Susan
Steinmart's
Steinmart.
birthday. She should wander over here and take a sip of what's on the table here for her birthday. But
Susan Steinmart, if you're in the vicinity, come by for a taste, please. But Woody, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching the show.
I'm sorry. I'm Woody Fincham, of course, and we run a small appraisal firm here in the Charlottesville area, specializing in complex property. I mean, our claim to fame, I think, is that we're willing to pretty much do anything that the other firms around town don't want to do, residentially speaking. Do a lot of litigation support work, a lot of large estates, luxury homes, that kind of thing. And just love what I do, and I will bore you to death with appraisal talk. So ask any questions you have.
We can't wait to hear it. Scott Morris, how's the week treating you, my friend?
Good morning, bro. Good. I flew back in last night from Michigan. Was out there for a company meeting. Was awarded the President's Pick and President's Choice Award for the company. Yeah, thanks, man. We put 5 borrowers who were having some tough times getting under contract the previous weeks. Got them into something under contract in the last 3 days. Big wins this week. Talked to the amazing Carrie Griggs this morning. Little self-motivation call to bounce off of somebody.
That guy's 1,000 miles an hour.
1,000 miles an hour, bro.
I love that about him.
Love it. Doing all the things, man. I'm here on a Wednesday for the most, anticipated rate speak talk coming up later.
Is it really anticipated? I think this has been.
This one's pretty anticipated.
Yeah, but don't you think it's been priced?
So has it been priced in? The 50 bips has, but that's not what they're looking. So the speak is what they're looking for, and it's the talk has been, do we get to 3% to lower inflation, or do we now have a 5% rate target? And if that's the case, are we gonna get is this a 50 bip move with 75 bip moves in the future? And we're gonna see what that does to the U.S. 10-year. I think since from the time I walked in the door to now has broke 3% again, which we keep flirting with as a let's call it a new technical high over the last 7 days. So
I was actually listening to an NPR piece about this. So do you think that the mortgage rate's already baked in this half a point at this point? Has that been baked in like a month ago?
So, I mean, it depends on what we continue to see in the bond market. As we
Well, at 3%, we know it's going up.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like we're near a plateau. But at the same time, what we see with mortgage-backed securities and what we see with just the bond market in general is going to dictate whether we truly are or not. So,
We're going to jump back to that because I pulled an article that came in early this morning on the Wall Street Journal, basically talking about, we've been talking about this ARM stuff coming back in. So we'll tackle.
I mean, there's some, there is some good stuff out there, and scenarios for certain borrowers. But I think the key really is at this point, get in, whether it's an ARM or fixed, build some equity and refinance later. And then also on the ride in this morning, I listened to Bloomberg, one of the big topics of conversation. Honestly, I can't even remember if this was this morning or last night driving in from Dulles, but talking about, it was this morning. Who's the Barbara chick from Shark Tank?
Barbara Corcoran.
Yes, talking about.
Did you just say chick?
Yeah, okay. Lady, who's that nice old lady? Talking about affordable housing in New York City, and like how do they create something that doesn't look like East Germany with like these columns of apartment buildings or condos or whatever you want to call it, and that that's certainly not something that's going to happen in Manhattan. But where do you put it? How do you same problem we're talking about here. Where do you put the houses? How do you get it done? I'm
going to jump into Woody here real quick, but I'm going to be talking in front of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors about housing affordability. And it ties a little bit into what you're doing every day, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking of you this morning. I mean, this has got to be hard for you. I mean, the numbers, the values are changing. I've got a report here from CAR. That's the first quarter that, for all intents and purposes, you might as well throw it away. It's great work, but
it's old news now.
It's old news now. So how do you tackle that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, as an appraiser, you have to be on your game. Market analysis is the main thing that we do anymore. Understanding, what's going on at each transaction that we're doing appraisals for. From what I understand, we're one of the few firms that are actually asking the listing agent, well, how many contracts did you get on it? I mean, how many of those?
That was going to be my first question related to this: is how much do you consider where you have 10 offers that all came in at the contract price, as opposed to what other comps are supporting? How that really affects value.
So I won't get into details, but much like we've had a successful last couple of days with a bunch of contracts. You mentioned earlier, Woody, you're a small firm, and I appreciate that. But you're actually doing some national stuff, right? I'm looking at a per certification home sale price premium white paper you wrote for Charlottesville, but you're doing this around the country for them, right?
Right. Yeah, we just finished up a 4-city study that included Charlottesville, Grand Rapids, Phoenix, and Boston.
So boil down this in a few seconds or less. How is this reflecting our marketplace?
So essentially in Charlottesville, we're a very accepting market to green technology, high performance homes, and Pearl does a certification on them. Well, what the certification does is it quantifies information for the appraiser and for the consumer and for anyone else who's interested in the property. So what we were asked by Pearl to do was to look at all the Pearl sales homes that have sold in the region in the last couple of years and go in and do a study to see, well, is there in fact a market premium being associated with the Pearl certification? And we found that in this case, in Charlottesville, we're about 5%. We're showing for homes that will sell higher by about 5% than a home without one.
So Pearl's also one of our wonderful sponsors on the show, and we've been talking about that for a while. That it runs about 5% anecdotal, from our end of it. We see that in the real world, but this is a white paper, an actual document that verifies that. So if you use Pearl certification, and this, it may or may not be important to you in today's market, but pricing is important, always is, in my opinion. If you can capture another 5%, that's pretty
significant.
Awesome.
It's going to become even more important as the market starts to normalize again. Once we get back to a more competitive market, things like this are really going to stand out on homes when they're being marketed. And that was the big takeaway we had that we didn't expect. Because this is actually the second study I've been a part of with Pearl. First time I've led one. But both studies, we found that the properties that aren't marketed they're pretty much just leaving money on the table, and it's unfortunate, for the consumer.
What's a normalized market to you, Woody?
Where we're not seeing houses with 10 offers the first day they're on the market. We like to. You never know when you're in a balanced market. It's always retrospectively you can look back and say, well, we were balanced then, but because you're always right in the thick of it. But when you get to like probably 60 to 90 days on market, would probably be a more normalized market. I don't know that we're going to see that anytime soon, though.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the questions I was going to ask you two gentlemen, what matrix do you use to determine, where we're making this change from a seller's market to a buyer's market? I use days on market. Some people use absorption rate, how many homes are on the market that it can absorb it. You jump in, I think I heard 60 to 90 days is.
That's about what we've seen traditionally, but everything's changed in the last several years.
I agree.
I mean, the new normal is it's not the old normal. So I don't.
So how do you two gentlemen manage that on your end of the transaction? I know how we manage it on our end of it, but from a lender's perspective, Scott, this constant changing, and then from an appraiser's, how do you guys manage that on a daily basis?
So a big part of it for me, specifically dealing with the appraisal, is the more competitive, the faster the close date, which I'm very much reliant on the appraisal being turned in 10 days, ideally, in order to hit that. So that means contract received, contract disclosed, appraisal ordered in day 2. And that's just to avoid, if something happens with the appraisal. Now, I think, really 14 to 18 days is probably closer to average. But that's a huge goal in hitting a 21-day close, is making sure we get that back in time to make that turn happen.
That's the old normal that I do miss. A couple weeks is fast. I mean, we're backlogged 3 to 4 weeks right now on normal work.
That's the problem.
It's like drinking from a fire hose right now.
Are we short on appraisers?
So here's my question. I understood that when we were full of refinances. But with the inventory being as shorted as it is, how
have the appraisers left the business? Is that why?
Well, the median age for my profession, I'm an SRA designated appraiser with the Appraisal Institute, and it's like getting your master's degree in what we do. And the median age for that's 63. I'm 45, and I'm still a young buck. I've been doing this 20 years, and I'm looked at as a rookie still. So there's definitely an aging out. The biggest problem is after the bust, 12 years ago, the appraisal management company platform got really ramped up. A lot of mortgage companies started outsourcing all of their procurement for appraisals out to these companies. And there are a tremendous amount of appraisers right now that refuse to work with AMCs just because of the problems that arise with AMCs. AMCs are mostly an unregulated industry, and they don't have a good relationship with most appraisers, unfortunately.
So for the few folks that don't, or in acronyms, let's try to explain what an AMC is, and so everybody kind of understands what we're talking about.
So an AMC is an appraisal management company, and what they are is they're a third party that the lender uses to procure appraisal work. Like with Scott's company, they're a large company. They've got a multi-state presence. They can't know every appraiser in every market. So it's much easier for them from a logistics point of view to hire one of these companies who go out and actually find the appraisers. And a lot of the appraisal management companies have what they call a panel of appraisers for each of the regions that they service. So it's just a way for them to be able to do that so they can concentrate on making their loans and not have to worry about hunting down an appraiser.
So I want to kind of jump into something that I think you're going to be talking a little bit later on with CAR, with the Charlottesville Association of Realtors. So from the appraisal perspective, how can I do my job better to help my client, either a buyer or seller, and help you do your job? How can we help work together to move this needle forward? In other words, what's the not shortcuts, it's a wrong choice of words. What can we do to make it more efficient? To make it more efficient. Thank you.
Data is what we live on. So if you're a listing agent, you have an appraiser coming out to look at a property, make it available for them, have data for them. If you know that you're pushing price in your particular niche, then it's important that you try to support where you're at, because really what it comes down to is, are there comps available to support what the contract amount's at? And if it's a really high priced contract, then it's really important. And then a list of renovations that have happened to the property, upgrades, anything about in that vein is good information to have for the appraiser.
So to circle back to something we talked about earlier, so on top of the listing agent showing up, having put together a package saying, hey, I know that you're a fantastic professional and you're going to do your job, but I have some comps here for you already, so you kind of get to see an idea where we came up with the price point. But we also had 10 offers that took us above asking to get to this number. So not only did the market support this number, but also the number of individuals who want to buy this house are already willing and qualified to do that as well.
Yeah, it's very important to know that information. Another specific piece of information in that would be how many of those 10 offers are guaranteeing the contract price, and how many of those are guaranteeing it regardless of an appraisal. That really shows a strong demand for a piece of property. It doesn't mean that through what we do as an appraiser we can always support it, but when I'm done with all my adjustments, I'm going to have a range of value. I'm definitely going to be in the upper end of that range, that whatever I can support. And we, like I mentioned earlier, we do a very in-depth market analysis. So we trend using Excel and a couple of other proprietary platforms that we use. And we know what the market's doing to the day when we're writing that report. So, and when we're making our market condition adjustments, or time adjustments as some folks call them, we're doing it by the day. We're not doing it by quarter like some appraisers like to do, which that's almost regressive.
Yeah.
So,
especially in this market.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm going to be that guy that goes here, right?
I know where you're going.
Well, because we spend way too much time together, but which is a beautiful thing. I'm very thankful for it. But I'll be that, and we won't, we have a couple of rules. No division of politics. We don't point fingers at other people, right? So we're not going to call out individuals. What you just outlined, Yonna and I have been doing for years, right? We always do comps. We leave a package for a listing, upgrades. We now are just starting the multiple contracts, what it is, just in basic terms, so the appraiser who's coming to see that knows that. There's a couple of appraisers that get very upset with us that we do that. Yeah. And I don't understand the rationale behind that. Can you explain that? Why do they get upset?
There's a real divisiveness between the real estate agents and appraisers, and I'm going to pick on my people here. I always call appraisers God's chosen people because everybody hates us. But we can be more.
We don't hate you, Woody.
I don't hate you. You brought us bourbon.
We actually love you.
That's why I brought bourbon. I think it itself is an antiquated part of the process.
It can be. So in the end, it's about being a professional. If you're dealing with appraisers who aren't willing to talk to you, that I can only call that unprofessional. Because here's the thing, Keith. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. Please.
When I teach for the Appraisal Institute, I'm out lecturing. I'm talking to other appraisers about what we do in our daily business. I always really try to advocate for working with the agents as best you can, because I'm here to synthesize what the market's doing. I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the market value? How better can I understand what's going on in the market than talking to the agents who are actually working with the consumers? Amen. And they're hearing what they want and what they need. If I'm circumventing that discussion, then I'm just not doing my professional diligence, in my opinion.
So I run into very much it's a don't tell me how to do my job.
Yes.
Whereas you tell me how to build a better mousetrap, and I'm going to be out there catching mice with that thing the next day. And my point in that is, if I'm sending a rebuttal and it's specifically to adjustments, like, hey, you called this deck a patio, and if we look at if we look at the comps, this had this, and can we, we're looking to get $10,000 greater. I feel that it's there, and I run into problems with both AMCs and appraisers in, well, you can't say that because that's going to hurt their feelings. And it's like, this isn't about feelings. This is simply about, can we take an honest look at what's going on here and have a conversation about, these adjustments.
Yeah, right. That's a commonality I hear often. Appraisers can be very standoffish about it, just because you're starting to question how they're doing individual things within the report. A well-written appraisal report summarizes everything that they do. So if I make a $65 a square foot adjustment on a home, I am going to also say why I'm doing it how I came about that number. Did I use regression? Did I use extraction? Did I use paired sales analysis? We discuss all of that for everything we do in our reports. If you look at most of the reports out there, though, there's very little commentary in them at all.
100%.
And I think what it is when you're starting to really drill down on an adjustment like that, you're possibly exposing somebody for not understanding. They may not exactly understand how they're doing it, and they may just be using the old swag method to make an adjustment.
So, we're all talking about arms coming back, right? Mm-hmm. I've got mixed emotions about that. I understand that this could be a good product to help certain folks. I also know that this was part of the time of great unpleasantness that caused that, or part of it anyway. So from the time of great unpleasantness, right, to now, each one of our worlds changed quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So from your perspective, what is different now than it was back then? And then Scott, what is different now, particularly interacting with the appraisers and then
So
us?
one of the things Woody and I talked on before we came on camera is the legality of loan officers contacting appraisers. And it may not be illegal, but the conversation can only be to let's say to those adjustments or to very specific things about the property, which is why it's definitely frowned upon. Because since the time of great unpleasantness and since the rules that were implemented and since the growth of AMCs, these things were all put in place. So if I couldn't call Woody as the guy that I sent to everything and said, hey, Woody, I need this one to come in at X, and if it doesn't, maybe Woody isn't working with me anymore.
And that's what got us into trouble.
That's what created this.
Yeah, that was a very common problem before everything fell apart 12 years ago. The great unpleasantness, I like that.
Yeah. Well, no. That's
Neil Williamson's watching.
That is all Neil Williamson. I've totally stole it, as I typically do on any of his great comments. I'll just claim them as mine, but he actually said it.
I think as you guys are seeing here, I'm never short on words. I like to hear myself talk, I think. At least my wife keeps telling me that.
It's good for a talk show.
Yeah, this is a talk show.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm always open to communicating and having a professional conversation. If it gets into where it's ad hominem attack or something like that, I don't want to be involved with it, and it won't be. But, I'm always happy to discuss what I do and what my reports say and show. But I understand that's not a commonality in the business, unfortunately.
But let's talk process today, right?
Your wife says agreed. You do like to hear yourself. Is that Lori?
It's Lori, yes.
Yeah, she says agreed. She's watching right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, but look how gorgeous he is. Look how.
I love your husband, Lori.
I think he's had way too much bourbon this morning.
I love your husband, Lori.
Yeah. So help me out as a real estate agent, and I won't say the word realtor because I can't do it, right? So help me out as a real estate agent, right? How, we've got, the market is the way the market is. We've got a buyer. Scott's doing the loan for us on that end of it, and we do our thing and we do our presentations on it, and it's kind of going sideways. What can I do to help, right? What can I do as a real estate agent to engage in the process?
Can I ask a more specific question
Sure.
before we get to appraisal? When we say sideways, we're going to assume the appraisal didn't come in at value.
We're going to assume that.
Okay, so here's a common misconception that I deal with on a daily basis, product related. When you come to value, do you come to value differently on a VA loan versus a conventional loan as
No.
far as how you get there? And can you talk a little bit about that specifically?
Well, I am a VA panel appraiser, and we treat every mortgage transaction the same. We don't try to come in high, low, or indifferent on it. There are differences in what we have to deal with regarding the assignment conditions to some of these, because VA has a very specific set of assignment conditions they require, just as FHA does. And each of the AMCs also add their own overlays as well. When they're out procuring to be a vendor for a company like yours, they're going to say, well, we have all these extra things we ask appraisers to deal with because we find it makes the process easier for you as the client. It doesn't make it easier for the appraiser, but it makes it easier for everyone else involved. Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, there should be no difference between how one handles the other.
So I got a VA. My client decided to waive the home inspection, right? You do the inspection and you find some issues wrong with it. What happens next?
Well, if they're minimum property required repairs, we have to flag them, and then they will have to be fixed, whether it's through the buyer or the seller, and how they negotiate that. That's not on our end.
So
Correct. So then we have an appraisal that's become subject to, subject to the repairs, and whether the listing agent, is happy or indifferent, it's something that's going to need to be addressed in order for the loan to move forward. And one of the things that we find on our end is useful to both us and the appraiser is to actually know that the work has been completed, actual eyes on, hey, here's the problem, before we're sending somebody back out to say, well, it looks like they did fix a handrail, but there's still an entire set of steps that looks like they pulled the treads off of and never came back and fixed. Like this, we're gonna ring you up for another $150 visit, coming out here to get this done. Please let us know when it's done correctly.
So if we had a closing agent or closing attorney, somebody like Bill Tucker here, the question I would ask, okay, what's next? Right, so what happens in the transaction? Does the buyer have the ability to terminate the contract at that point? Right, I mean, I'm just going to go down a road that we probably shouldn't go at the moment, but now I'm trying to get this deal across the finish line, and is it a simple renegotiation with the other side? Is that where we're at?
So from my understanding of the process, and again, I'm making some conjecture here, VA requires there to be a backdoor out for the veteran to get out of the loan if they can't get financing. So if they can't come to terms on fixing that, then the veteran can, at that point, terminate the transaction.
And that's what I knew that answer. I was trying to see if somebody else came to that at the same time. So that's the answer.
Correct.
Scott, speaking specifically to final inspections, I can't tell you how often in my career we get sent out to do an inspection where either none of the work is done or just part of it's done. We find often that it's because the written up part of the report that discusses the repairs are never given to anyone. They should have a copy of that so they know specifically what the appraiser, because we take pictures of it and offer an itemized list of things that need to be done, and it would be a whole lot easier on our end if that was the case.
And that's something that, again, goes back to professional, trusted advisors. I reach out to the buyer agent and have a conversation on let's talk about what we want to send. Like, I'll capture the entire screen. If the value's short, we're going to send the entire report so they can see that, we can talk about it, and we can come up with a way to rebut. But specifically to repairs, I'm going to send all of the repairs to the buyer agent, have that reviewed, and then say, okay, we need to get this to the listing agent ASAP, and go from there.
How often do you get that reach out, hey, I need you to relook at this appraisal? Does that happen to you often?
Well, not with us that much. Again, we spend a lot of time on in-depth market analysis. So every transaction can't be supported. I mean, sometimes folks are just way out in the weeds with what they're offering. But in those situations, when we get it's called a ROV, or a reconsideration of value, that's always done through the lender. We can't discuss it directly with the borrower or with the agents. We have to do everything with the lender themselves. It's a requirement under our licensure. So, usually what will happen in a situation where they've initiated the reconsideration of value is the mortgage company, each one has their own specific process for that. Usually the buyer's agent will get involved, and then they will offer rebuttals to issues they see with the appraisal and ask questions, and maybe even suggest comparable sales or alternative comparable sales to use. But again, we get a lot of those when they happen where we're already using all the sales that they're giving to us. And of course, in those situations, we can't do much because we've already considered the data they're giving us.
So speaking specifically to national average, VA appraisals have come in 91.7% at or above value, where conventional is 90. This is not a product problem.
So why is that?
Why is it that they come in?
Because it's a more in-depth appraisal? Why do they typically come in a little higher?
Well, the VA has with the Tidewater. The Tidewater process. When I'm doing a VA assignment, when I go out, I look at all my data, I get back, and I'm going, you know what, this is not going to support contract.
At that point, shoots a warning flare in the air and says, all right, guys, what's going on here? How did you get here?
At that point, I'm reaching out to my point of contact at the lender and saying, hey, we're initiating Tidewater, and Tidewater is a process that allows them, prior to the appraisal being completed, to offer any insight, any data that they would like to offer. Sometimes borrowers will choose not to do it because they trust in the appraisal process, and they go, well, the VA appraiser is they're doing right by us by doing what they're doing, and we're only going to offer X. But most of the time, the agents will get together. Usually, the buyer's agent and the listing agent get together, and they work together on pulling data together and getting it over to us. And that data has to go through the lender. It can't go directly to the appraiser.
So multiple questions coming in for Woody. This one is about the appraisal gap. How many deals have you done? And this may not apply to you. You may not know, or you may not hear about this. This may be more realtor side and lender side. But how many deals are you coming across where there's a gap between the appraisal and the purchase price?
It happens a lot in the luxury section. Because usually luxury properties folks are paying whatever they want to pay for them, and usually the financing component of it's just a small piece of it. So they're putting a lot of cash into the property already. So we'll see in some cases, we'll follow up and look at something a few weeks later. Did it close? And if it closed at the contract amount and we weren't able to support it on the deal we're working on, then we know that folks are paying over. I don't think it happens that often with our work, but I can't speak for the profession as a whole in the region.
Then the follow-up question to that from agents, is this going to be the best year, or the past year your best year in business?
I mean, the last 5 years consecutively have been better every year by double digits as far as our revenue streams go. It's been an amazing ride. I think we're going to see some slowing down, though, probably towards the end of the normal hyper buying season, which is going to be, August, September, that time of the year.
So are you seeing more of a normal cycle starting now this spring?
That's what you've been saying.
Yeah, this spring, it feels like this is...
Days on market are lengthening.
Yeah.
Absorption's definitely changing.
Yep.
We're also, the refi market's about to just stop. I've got colleagues all over the country that are just they're dead. I mean, we're lucky that we've stayed flush with work, but there are a lot of appraisers I'm hearing from around the country that are not flush with work at all, because a big part of their business is refis. Refis will still happen because if you need to start a business or you need to send a kid to college, a 6% or 5% loan is still better than paying 18% on your credit card. But it's not going to happen.
Or an 18% mortgage. Not that I've ever done that before.
Wow. That's a
The
good
first one.
My first house was 18%.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I was happy to get it.
I think we were 8.5 for our first.
Yeah.
Price points were different, though.
Yeah.
That was on a $150,000 purchase. So 18% on a $150,000 purchase back in 1988, actually.
That's a good chunk of change.
That was a pretty large monthly payment.
I bet it was.
On that end of it.
Yeah, could you imagine buying although it's on a 30-year term, but buying a
$700,000 house?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, somebody who's a lot smarter than me can go ahead and do the math. Any other questions, Jerry?
Yes. The question for Woody is, where do you go? What sources of knowledge do you utilize to improve your field and your base of knowledge as an appraiser?
That's a really big question. Simply stated, I mean, I'm an instructor with the Appraisal Institute, so I do a lot of teaching. And I take a lot of classes. I mean, my continuing education requirements are 28 hours every 2 years. I must have somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 hours every time I go in for my renewal. I'm constantly trying to improve. We're constantly looking at technology. We do a lot of data analysis. So data analysis requires the best software, the best hardware you can find. So that's where we spend a lot of our time and training.
This is a follow-up. How many appraisals are done in drive-by fashion?
Ooh.
Not a tremendous amount, and not as much as many think. And now the drive-bys are used a lot of times as a second opinion value. I don't know, Scott, do y'all do that with yours?
So if let's say an FHA loan and we've had 100% increase in value in 180 days and it requires a desk review, there may be, if the desk review is from a local appraiser, they may do a drive-by for something like that.
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of them.
It's just the work.
Since the COVID protocols have shifted back to normal, we did a lot of drive-bys during COVID, but
you kind of had to do that.
Yeah,
that was a whole different scenario
yeah.
on that end of it.
Yeah, but it is changing. We are going to see Fannie and Freddie have got some major changes coming down the pipe over the next couple of years, and we're probably going to see some more of those alternative valuations being used.
So I was, not this past weekend, but the last weekend, I was at the UVA baseball game when they were playing North Carolina, and the guy turned around and said, "Ain't you this guy, yada, yada, yada." And the first question after he said, "Well, I don't want to bother you with your family, but," he goes, "Are we in a bubble, right?" We get this question asked all the time. Since you've been in the business since prior to during the last process, the last time of unpleasantness. I'm going to talk about some numbers today with Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. Just in the county of Albemarle, year to date, There was 300, this is just single-family attached and detached. I don't do condos or new construction. There was 356 units sold in 2020. Last year was 462, so we're negative 100 units. So the selling inventory's down, but we're up $26,000 in value over that end of it. And the question is, first of all, the whole conversation about housing affordability is a separate thing, but are we in a bubble? From your perspective? I mean, you look at this by the minute.
I don't think bubble is the right word. Bubble seems more hyperbolic, I think. I don't know that we're in a really dangerous market. Like we knew 12 years ago, 13 years ago, we were in a dangerous market. There was no question then. I had lenders taking me off of their list because we were one of the first firms, at that time we were in Virginia Beach, that were actually starting to show a decline because we actually chart our data out and we were showing where the pinnacle was and where it's now dropping. And it caused a huge problem for our firm at that point, but we had to tell the truth. I don't anticipate it this time around. I think we're going to see some normalization for sure. But I think it's just going to get back to a normal competitive market, hopefully. The big unknown right now.
What is normal, though, to you?
60, 90 days of days on market, and not having 10 offers the first day something's on the.
So I ran out the last 11 years, and the same year-to-date time back to 2011. And the median, not the average, but the median days on market in 2011 was 75, 1078. 978, 2014 was 60 days on market.
Right.
I think Albemarle County is 60 is when you start hitting 60, that's when this is going to flip. Not closer to 90, I think closer to
How about
60.
a follow-up for Woody? What concerns you about this market? DJ Carlisle giving you props, Austin Cockerman, is it Charissa Kwan? Bill Garber, all giving you props here. You got 4 states watching you on the show here. What concerns you about this market?
Well, I'm a little flattered. Bill Garber is our chief lobbyist for the Appraisal Institute. Thanks for watching, Bill. And Carissa, too. She's up in Long Island.
You said that wrong, by the way.
What's that?
You said Long Island wrong.
Yeah, he's from Long Island. The New York, the Yankee in him comes out.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
No
this is where you
worries.
say, Keith, don't interrupt the man over there.
What's concerning me now really is housing affordability. If I had to put any concern on anything, it's that. Rent is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's outpacing everything.
Yeah.
And we've got so many corporate investors getting involved. If you're a first-time home buyer, you're competing against investors that want to own a portfolio of homes in that niche of the market.
And boomers.
Yeah, and you can't. What are you going to do? Who can afford $2,500 a month when you're working, your first position out of college? And I just don't see it being tenable.
We can't be specific because on a piece of property, but we put a piece of Yonna actually put a piece of property in Fluvanna County on the market, low 2s.
Did it fly?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
40 showings in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Multiple offers, lots of cash offers, lots of investors, as you were just stating, wanting to buy without even looking at
Over
it.
ask?
Over ask.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Short-term rentals, too, are driving that market tremendously. If you're in a subdivision or neighborhood where you can do them, we do all kinds of, I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of luxury property, where you get a lot of properties out in wine country where they'll buy them up and they use them for, short-term Airbnb rentals. And they're making revenue streams, over $100,000 on those things. It's amazing what they're doing with them.
Jump in here, Scott. Bubble, no bubble?
No bubble because, again, we've got a supply and demand problem that we can't build ourselves out of. So it's a human versus rooftop situation, which investors are capitalizing on. And, that is, it has its pluses and minuses. It's certainly, this is the society that we live in, and it gives a lot of good things. But the problem is the government's still in the way. Because if the government was allowing builders to build, we'd have more stuff going in the ground, and we wouldn't be fighting this not in my backyard stuff. And the more that we could put available to people. That's the not in my backyard argument. I just don't understand. Like, you've said this before. So do you have kids? Oh, cool. Where do you want them to live? In your basement forever? Okay, probably not. So let's look at what our viable options are to create a market that can sustain itself. And everyone now. There's a lot of local governments that haven't had the foresight to come up with revenue streams to support putting more people in their backyard, and that's a whole nother problem. So there's multiple levels of solutions, and every day that goes by where action isn't taken to create an answer is foregoing the problem.
So take right there, Scott Morris. Keith, I'm going to throw it back to you. First, Joel Baker, giving him props. Ferris Alomani, Michael Coyle, all giving them props.
Oh, wow.
5 states on the show. Keith Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for 3 years now. Turn red tape into green tape. Hashtag, let's hashtag the hell out of that. It's interesting. The way I look at the market is, the inventory on the left side is growing anemically. The buyers are getting carved off pretty rapidly because of this housing affordability question that you're just talking about, the first-time home buyer. But the reason why this...
Well, to a certain extent, the reason that we still have many multiple offers is because we had people buying houses 5 years ago at 5%.
Yep.
Well, guess what? That's where we are. We've seen an increase in incomes. So while we've seen an increase in housing pricing, we're not at the ultimate lows. We are certainly in a range where there's a ton of qualified buyers.
So it's interesting you should bring that up. Year over year.
I'm an interesting guy.
Good. I was waiting for somebody to crack a wise thing. So you picked 5 years, right? Same analogy, same single family attached, detached, same time frame. 329 units were sold in Albemarle County. That's only an 8% difference than this year to date on it. But it's a 30% year-over-year difference on the end of it. So you picked 5 years. Maybe you're cheating and looking at my numbers
I'm not. I can't see that.
Now the difference is, Woody, the median sales price was 120 grand less 5 years ago than it is now. So if you bought 5 years ago, you earned about 120 grand in equity in your property. Is that tracking about what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, that sounds like like it should be. Scott, how many? Question for you. How many borrowers are being eliminated with the rate increases that we've had? Have we had a lot of buyers pushed out?
So it's less elimination versus a shift in price point. In fact, I'm starting to see many calls come in from, hey, I was working with such and such, and now I'm being told that my price point's $40,000 less than it was. Can you help me see if there's other options? So those calls are happening. And then there's calls that, I've been making since January with updating pre-approvals to agents going, hey, John and Sally were here, but now here's an updated letter because, if we're shopping at the top of their price point, that price point's moved.
Sure.
So what we're seeing is more cash coming in, not necessarily cash buyers, but what they're doing is, maybe we could talk about this, buying rates down, or instead of borrowing 100% or 97% of it, they're bringing a little bit more cash down because their monthly payment then gets in line, right? They're trying to bring cash to the table to get to that. At least that's what we're seeing.
More money taking out of 401ks, gift funds so let's say we were at 300, or let's say we were at 320, now we're at 300. How do we get back to 320? So looking at creative ways to do that.
Neil Williamson, to Scott's point, Albemarle County's shrinking development area will be exhausted by 2044.
I'm exhausted talking about it.
And he shares a link to Free Enterprise Forum.
Yeah.
2044.
I think
exhausted.
I think it'd be sooner than that.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I think it'd be sooner than that. I think there's a lot less actual land in that 5% than everybody thinks. Neil probably knows exactly what it is, but as we talk all the time, there's not that much developable land within that remaining that balance of 5%.
And that's commercial and residential.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is important to emphasize. So, Woody, what's the rest of the year look like with your crystal ball and into next year?
Well, through the summer, I think we're going to continue to be really busy. The refis, again, they're tapering off. We're still doing them, but they're definitely decreasing. We're still seeing a tremendous amount of activity in the jumbo market, though. Our firm does a lot of that work, and that's not going anywhere. And that typically is pretty insulated from the other markets anyway. I think we're probably going to start seeing more of a normal market in the fall and then going into the winter. Winter typically is a slower season. Seasonality, it's slower for us here in the region. But again, as long as there's all these folks that need someplace to move to, I think there's still going to be a strong demand. So again, I don't see it being, I'm not pessimistic about it. I just think it's going to slow down.
So I agree 1,000% with you, so much so normally Yonna and I go away for our wedding anniversary the last week of May and the first week of June. We're not doing that for that very reason. We're starting to see things pick up, and we've decided to do that trip around Christmas time in December, because I have a 21-year spreadsheet that I track what we do, right, on that end of it. It feels like we're getting closer to this normal cycle. But back to this housing affordability, we've had a couple of listings on the market since Friday that were multiple price ranges from a couple of hundred to touching nearly $1 million. And all of them had multiple showings, all of them had multiple offers in it. So this housing affordability or this housing availability issue is affecting all price points. And I believe wholeheartedly that if we work on one price point and make that stronger, it helps all of them. Does that make sense in your world?
I think so. I think so.
Comments coming in. This is from, and introduce the gentleman that's watching, because he made an impact. He said, Bill Garber. He's got a question for you.
Okay.
He says, how are lenders looking at green and energy efficiency in today's market?
Ooh.
Oh, he's throwing me a softball. So I do a lot of green work. We do a lot of solar PV and certified homes. Lenders are not looking at them the right way, unfortunately. When you have a green home or high performance home, you have less carrying costs on your home, so you can afford more home usually. There are products out there that Fannie and Freddie have that will allow them to consider the green stuff, but we're not seeing 9 out of 10 times when I get an order to do a mortgage use appraisal on a green home, we have no clue that it's a green home because they're not communicating it to us. That creates a huge bottleneck issue with getting an appraisal turned around. So if I've got a 3-week turn time on something, we've just now kicked it out to 4 weeks because now I've got to go track down all this information that we could have just asked for up front. So lenders are not following through on that.
That's why Pearl is so important, right?
Right, yeah, right.
So because they come with an addendum attached to it, and for a very reasonable price, I have that in my package that I'm putting down on the counter when you come in to take a look at it, and then that helps your valuation.
Yeah.
But without that, it's difficult.
Yeah, and there's definitely, here in Charlottesville, we're the leading edge, I think, in the country with just how much green impacts or high performance homes are impacting the market. There are a lot of them here. And we've got a lot of builders that are building them from the ground up that way, but we've got a lot of retrofitted homes as well.
So from a lender standpoint, a lot of what, so it's not largely taken into account on new construction. A lot of the programs that exist now, there's a lot of stuff out there. So I could.
It's confusing.
I could be ignoring some things, but the big one that probably gets the most attention is PACE loans, and that's Property Assessed Clean Energy. Is that close to the acronym?
I think so.
And that allows you to capture, if you're going to do a refinance that would traditionally be a cash out, and you're going to be putting in energy efficient windows and doing those types of things to the property, it turns it from a cash out to a rate and term. So you're getting a little favorable product as far as that goes. It's something I'm familiar with. We can help talk to you about it if that's one of the things that you want to do. You could probably combine it, and I'd have to take a look if you're doing a home style or some type of renovation loan on a purchase. There's probably some options, but to be honest with you, yeah, it's something ignored. Do I look enough into that? Probably not.
Yeah, but really, if I do my job right, and I'm listing Jerry's home, and we bring Pearl certification. Correct me if my train of thought is wrong. And we're gonna list Jerry's home, and we have Pearl certification come in, and we have the green thing, and we price it out right. We have all the documents to it. We sell Jerry's home at this particular price. We hand you the appraisal, and it appraises.
Oh yeah, yeah,
What-
that's fantastic. But,
Right?
and that's getting more value for your seller. And in to relate to what you were saying with the lenders don't take into account, it's just like we don't take into account rising gas prices. So just because they're saving on an energy bill, and right now if they're saving on an energy bill there, they're paying for it somewhere else.
Sure.
So those aren't things that we take into consideration from a debt to income perspective.
Again, my point is if we do our job right for Jerry and
It shouldn't
his,
matter.
it shouldn't matter to you because you now have the valuation
Yeah,
for it,
absolutely.
and we proceed and we close. Am I oversimplifying it? Mrs. Smith tends to accuse me of that regularly.
Well,
by
the
way.
market we're in right now, you really don't have time to catch your breath. So, I mean, you looking at all these little small facets are almost impossible for most
Well,
people.
if we do our job right prior to listing.
Sure.
Right? And, or we, it depends on what the seller's interest is, we need to get out quickly, we need to list quickly, that's something like that. But if there's a little bit of a runway, it's our fiduciary responsibility to Mr. and Mrs. Miller.
Agreed.
To do this work for them.
Yeah, definitely.
More stuff coming in for you guys. This is from Real Estate 3, Dan Pettit. Any increase in reverse mortgages?
I don't do any reverse mortgages. I'm just not the person for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm certainly, there are people that it's probably a good option for. I just don't do any of them.
Steve Haggart, great reminders about Pearl. Thank you for sharing that. This question comes in. Is it better to get a home built now, maybe for Keith? Is it better to get a home built now instead of getting into bid situations if buyers have time?
So I'm thumbing through, even though it's 30 days late, and I haven't quite had a chance to do it. I just got it this morning. But I believe the only increase in Albemarle County in number of units year over year or quarter over quarter in this case was new construction.
I read that this morning.
Yeah, I don't. You probably can recite the number. I think
No,
it's 12%.
I don't remember the number. I just remember it being up.
Rings a bell, but I may be wrong. So that's the market that is actually increasing on the end of it, which is great that some of these projects that were approved back in the 1800s are starting to actually get built at this point, or started in the 1800s and recently approved. Sorry.
That was a zinger.
That was a zinger
Yeah.
at that end of it. And I'm getting texts from Ned Galloway, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, so I have to be careful. I think he's watching on that end of it. But yeah, so it's a matter of timing, right? It's, you're going to pay more money, right? They're more expensive on the end of it. Is it where you want to be and how you want to live and all that kind of great stuff? But that's a possibility. Some people will sell their home now, cash out, go find a one-year rental, God forbid if you can find one on the end of it while Scott builds the house. It is a conversation that comes up quite a bit.
More comments coming in. Your wife, Lori, we run into the issues on many refinances. Rather than purchase sales, the lender isn't aware that there are green features on the home and therefore don't order the proper appraisal.
Right, yeah, we get called in quite often to help out in a situation where an appraiser's been hired, and not to the appraiser's fault at all. They just don't do high-performance homes. They don't, or it's got a solar PV system on it that they own. Those things usually add value to a property, and many appraisers are just either ill-equipped to deal with it or don't want to deal with it, and so they end up having to reshop it around, and unfortunately will lengthen out the process for folks.
But that's in the refi environment, right?
It happens in sales too, not as much, because usually if there's features like that on a home, it's in the listing.
Got it.
So we can do diligence and figure that out, but it's something that I wish the appraisal management companies and some of the lenders out there would spend more time at Loan App getting that information, because it's important to what we do.
This is from Grayson. Ask Woody where he thinks the next boom market is going to be by zip code or locality.
Boom market, wow. My crystal ball is broken.
I've got one if you want it.
He literally has a crystal
I literally
ball.
got 3 of them right here. If you want.
I have one back here. We have some magic wands.
We got magic wand. You want a magic wand? We got a magic
Sure,
wand. You can
sure,
wave
why
a
not?
magic. You can maybe.
I really don't know how to answer the question, because we're so focused on valuing the things that we're doing that figuring out where we're going to be in 3 months or even a year from now is really difficult. I think the short-term rental market's going to continue to develop big time.
So let me try asking the question a different way. Where are you seeing in the last let's say the beginning of this year, most of your appraisals out? Is it being concentrated? Is one area all of a sudden picking up more than another area a year ago?
It's
or-
hot everywhere.
Got it.
We handle Louisa out to the western part of the state, to the state line, all the way up to above Harrisonburg down to Lexington, and of course, Charlottesville is our center. It's our heartbeat for our business plan. But every place is hot. I don't know any market that isn't right now.
To that point of short-term rentals being the growth goes directly to my point of what I think, and this is just, some old redneck's opinion, that the DSCR, debt service recovery loans, are the first potential, if there's something that has a soft point as far as defaults in the market, because a lot of it is can be stated income based on what they project the rentals to be, and they can, there's a ton of tools to come up with this. But just like just like contractors, if when they have a hard time with subs, because subs are taking all the homeowner, like they jump all over homeowner work, like they're beating John homeowner because he's paying them this, and they can't get their floor guy in or their window guy in or
And
whatever.
they're getting paid right away.
And they're getting paid right away.
Yeah, sure.
The first thing that drops is the homeowner work.
Sure.
And then these guys are coming back to the contractors, well, hey, I can work for you now, and then they may have found that they found somebody else or they've worked out a new thing. The first thing that's going to collapse, because I think we're still in this amped up, this summer's not going to be like last summer, so the secondary home, these short-term rentals still look really sexy, but the first thing that's going to go away is the spend on that type of travel.
Yep.
And so those loans are going to be the dangerous loans in the future. And that, I think that was part of the Fed's forecast in putting these additional loan level price adjustments on secondary homes earlier in the year when they did it.
Yeah, but I mean, and that ties into, are we going to have another foreclosure problem?
I'm not saying that.
No. What I was trying to get at is, unless there's a global change, unless there is the pop of some balloon or bubble, right, which there isn't going to be. I think we all agreed there's just going to be let a little bit of air out in the bubble and the balloon instead of
I'm
being...
just saying if there's a pain point, that's the pain point.
Yeah,
I agree.
but
What do you consider a short-term rental? That just came in, and Joseph Gentile is giving Woody Fincham some props through a zinger in the comments section over there. But Joe Gentile giving him some props. What do you consider a short-term rental in time?
Airbnbs, like, and so let's say less than 30 days.
So it's interesting. I showed a home last night to a client. We're going to go show it again today. We're trying to get the ROI to work on it. Actually, I think this is a client we're going to hand your way by the end of today. On the end of it, it's at a price point that's above their comfort zone, but it has an ADU in it.
Ooh.
And we're looking at, okay, well, if I short-term rental this with some sort of return, you'll never know about it.
Plug my ears and go.
Yeah,
Let's talk about your ability to afford this, and then your opportunity on the other side.
Let me try this a
yeah.
different way. They can support the home
Scott
on
knows how
their
to
own
play the
thing.
game.
Fantastic.
That type of thing. What they're looking at.
Good for them, and I can't wait to talk to them.
There you go. So what they're looking at to make justification to them with the monthly payment
No,
they want to be at.
that's the same thing. And I'll tell them, just like I'd advise you, like I was advising a family member. Look, if you can't afford this, here's the path. And if you have the opportunity to take advantage of these things, that's great on you.
So I misspoke. It's not that, right?
And Scott, I agree with you. I mean, the short-term rentals are the best opportunity to see a good return. However, it's a higher risk situation for most people. And if we look at any foreclosure data out there over the last 20 years, secondary homes are going to be the easiest thing for someone to walk away from if they get into a financial
So I
situation.
think 100%. I think that's going to be the influx of foreclosure is the second homes that people got. But all that's going to do is help our inventory, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just.
Should.
It's not like it was when there was way more foreclosures.
Probably
that-
seeing more renovation loans too, like 2 or 3Ks and things
Yeah.
like that.
Talk about that.
Contact Tyler Sipe at Ross Mortgage. Tyler is immersed in 203K, and it's something that I want to reach out and help everybody with. So there, you got a couple different options depending on the amount of money that you're looking to add to it and the amount of the scope of the work. There's a subject to appraisal. So let's say we're going to go in and buy this $180,000 house. We're going to do $100,000 worth of work, and we're going to have a $280,000 value. Would you tell us a little bit about how that works for you coming up with the projected value based on either the contractor's bid or the HUD consultant's project, and what you do there?
Yeah, sure. I got to give props out to my older brother, Danny, who is one of the most respected 2 or 3K consultants out there. He works the whole East Coast. But anyway, brother, love you. So with that, what we do, we go in and look at the property as it is. We usually with the renovation, we're doing an as-is value of it as it sets, and then also what Scott's referring to as a subject-to value. And what that is we're given all the plans, specifications, and everything that's going to happen to the property, and we do a value as of today, what it should be worth today when the work's complete. Usually, a big renovation can be 6 months, 12 months long. So if the market's appreciating, your value actually should be a little higher when it's all said and done, but we're doing it's a hypothetical condition is what we're valuing it under, and just saying, okay, this is what it's going to look like, this is what it's going to have, this is what it's worth in today's market.
Similar to new construction, right?
Yes, exactly the same.
So if those who are getting new construction loans, that's the format that you actually follow still?
Yeah.
You're getting props from a lot of your buddies here. Bill Garber is offering a lot of commentary. He responds to the question that I asked you about hot zip codes or area.
Yeah.
He said, I asked Woody a similar question a year ago, and he said Waynesboro and Cape Charles. In reality, it's any zip code near a winery that makes a solid petite Bordeaux.
I like his thinking.
Tell me about Cape Charles. Do you know much about Cape Charles?
When I was in Virginia Beach, we used to do quite a bit of work up there. That's more than 10 years ago, though.
I used to own property and develop down there for 2 decades, from 87 up.
It's a beautiful area.
Yeah, I love it down there. Love it down there.
Yeah.
This question, soft price points, any at all? What price points start getting a little softer? And then Ricardo Cruz Duran, Mr. Fincham, Megan's giving you props at UVA CCU right now.
That's my
Community Credit Union. Megan has given you some props. They're watching you over there.
That's my daughter-in-law, and she's given us a wonderful grandson in the last year, and we have another one on the way. So,
isn't that awesome?
Oh, it's the best
We
thing
could do
ever.
a whole show just you and I about grandkids.
I love my grandbaby.
So the UVA Community Credit Union watching Fincham and Associates here. Is there a soft price point, a threshold where the price point gets soft? That could be for all three of you guys.
Let's use affordable. Let's say affordable, because soft can mean a lot of things. Like I think the $1 million price point is a little softer when it comes to getting offers accepted, but I don't think that's in line with the question. So I think the question is probably more related to affordability. Where do you think affordability lies? I think it lies in Powhatan and Goochland and Buckingham. I think that's
The ag communities, definitely.
So what we're I guess the first question is, and the interest rates will probably impact that. What is affordable, right? What is that affordable number? And it means different things to different people, right?
100%.
On that kind of thing. But definitely, even out in Buckingham County, we've talked about Buckingham regularly. There's not a lot of product out there to buy. I mean, it's not. That rubber band is stretched out.
COVID pushed a lot of folks out of metro areas into the, if they have high-speed internet, you can work from anywhere now.
No,
Nelson County, they really hit at the right time when they put that trunk in there. And that high-speed trunk has really opened it up. The entire time I've been in Charlottesville, Wintergreen's always had a year's worth of inventory on the market.
Oh, yeah.
There's none at all.
Did you ever expect that to happen?
No.
I've been here for 35.
The HOA fees are so expensive up there that it's sort of pushed people away from it.
I've had friends sell condos there that blew my mind.
Same here.
I've been in this market for 35 years. I would have bet you $1 million that would never happen, and darn it, it's happening, and it's flipping, which speaks to the availability and the affordability part of it. Do we have any other questions? Because I got something.
No, go ahead, please.
So I've been meaning to ask you this question for a long time.
Yes.
About a year ago, I helped our daughter buy a house up in Connecticut. My wife and I helped them do that. They didn't take my advice and use a local lender. They used a national lender. I told her, do me a favor, don't love the house until I hand you a set of keys. The appraisal came in, this was a year ago, well, maybe 2 years ago, came in 50 grand under. She starts crying. I said, let's thank everybody. Let's hold on to the deal. Let's get a new lender. We got a new lender up there. Appraisal came in $50,000 higher. There was a $100,000 delta between the first appraisal and the second. And the only difference was One was a national company, and one was a local lender. How does that happen?
Dude, that's a great question. I had a local guy in Winchester come in $30,000 low on something that and this is what the agents, my roommate from Quantico in the Marine Corps, and I said, bro, just go get another lender and get another appraisal. And they came in.
That's what they did.
They come in and they came in at value. And this is a specific one where I was like, look, the adjustments are not good. This is, you can't condemn it for performance, but it's not, there's nothing legally bad about it, but it's not a good appraisal, and that was confirmed.
So we did our normal thing, right? And I had the listing agent, I said, look, do you mind if we put on the thing, all the improvements and all this? And we did all of that. The only difference was the local lender had a local appraiser. The other one drove like an hour and a half to get there.
That's the AMC problem. They're using an appraisal management company that has a very distant relationship to that market. They probably don't have anybody. So they panic when they don't have someone boots on the ground there, and they just start calling appraisers. The unfortunate part about what we do in my profession is that lenders have to use you. They don't want to use you. I think we're a sticking point in the process.
That's a pretty accurate statement.
They're required by regulation to use us, so it's just a checkbox for them. There's not a lot of impetus being put on qualified appraisers. It's if you have the credential, and you could have gotten your credential 30 years ago, and you've not done anything to improve yourself in those 30 years, and you're still doing things the way you did it back then, that doesn't work in today's market, unfortunately. Local lenders are always going to want to work with local appraisers. They're not going to bring someone in from 4 hours away to do it. We charge more money on any assignment than some of the folks that come to, I've said, because we review appraisals. We get hired to review other appraisals, and I'll see where someone's they're coming from 3 hours away making half of what I'm making to do the same work.
Yeah, I can't, so we on our end of the world, I can't help Jerry buy a house up in Norwalk, Connecticut, right? That's where my daughter and son live. So I made a relationship with a Jerry over there, a real estate agent over there, that ultimately made a relationship with the Scott Morris over there, that we got across the finish line on it. But I don't understand how that's allowed to happen.
It shouldn't happen, but it does.
Yeah, and what can I do as a real estate agent if that happens? I know how I did this one. I convinced my daughter and son-in-law to use a different lender, and it worked out. But is there any other tools in my toolbox I can use to help?
Well, a couple things you could do is hire a local appraiser to do a review. But
can I do that?
Sure, but then you still could be up against another local appraiser who has a different opinion, and that's why I think that's my problem with the system. The fact that the Winchester property is a perfect example of where I use someone local in Winchester, and then the next guy uses somebody from out of DC, not local to the market, but puts a number on it, and again, I saw the second appraisal. It was in line with what the first one should have been.
Right.
Just because, now, you're very busy. Let's say you're so busy, you give me a return date of after the closing date, and I go, and I'm dealing with the AMC, and I go, look, guys, that clearly doesn't work. Find me someone who can get it done by X date, and that's part of what we're up against.
Well, just remember, if you need fast and cheap, you're not going to get quality. I mean, that's really and I understand you're under tremendous deadlines with what you do, and you've got to meet your closing dates.
I love that saying.
You can get it good, fast, or cheap, but you can only get two.
Yeah, it's a three-legged stool, right? You're not
you
going
get
to
what
get
you
all
pay
three.
for. You get what you pay for. So
Kevin Higgins has one for you guys. He's from Greenwood, Virginia. Charlottesville is now a bigger destination for weddings, breweries, wineries, cideries, distilleries. Do you think the Airbnb market will expand here? And if it does, how does it impact your business, given inventory levels?
I mean, it's already expanding very well. I mean, if you go around Veritas or any of those wineries out in the western part of the county, I mean, there's a lot of short-term rental property out there.
I can't quote the exact number, but we are many thousand hotel rooms short in here, and until that gets caught up, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, the Airbnb market is just going to keep on going.
Here's a wild question for you, Keith. With your connections,
Did you say a law question?
a wild one.
He said wild.
So Virginia Beach just put in new regulation with Airbnbs and properties like that. They're losing out on lodging tax and
Yeah.
hospitality tax.
Yeah.
What do you think the temperature is up at this part of the world for that to ever happen? Because we're not getting lodging tax on these folks coming into town.
So the gentleman that could really answer that verbatim would be Neil Williamson, and if he's still
he's watching,
and
yeah.
if he's still watching, he can chime in on it. I can't quote which jurisdictions, but certain jurisdictions do now have quote unquote room taxes on it. I believe it's Charlottesville and Albemarle, but please don't write that down as verbatim. Neil Williamson will definitely be able to share that
Gotcha.
that information. It's very, very funny. We had the same conversation with Chris Fairchild and Tony O'Brien with Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors. You know, they don't have a meals tax, right? They don't have a business tax. They don't have
Albemarle requires lodging tax.
lodging
That's
tax.
what he said.
Yeah, got it. I believe there's a business license you need to sign up on.
Charlottesville too.
Yeah, because I thought I was, but I'm not sure if the rest of the other jurisdictions do. I'm not sure if Nelson does.
All the outlying counties are very agrarian. I mean, there's a lot of ag zoning. Ag zoning allows accessory dwelling units by right.
So it's very interesting. I had that conversation about this property we were talking about that happens to be in Fluvanna County. And Fluvanna County happens to be one of the few counties that are way ahead of this auxiliary dwelling unit ordinance.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's well, you know.
I didn't know that there was something in that column, but I'm
Yeah,
very proud of them.
You know, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
I'm from Fluvanna. I grew up there. I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of the things.
Don't
that
get them
they've done.
talking about water.
Yeah.
No,
Don't get them talking
Well,
about
I was just
water.
going to bring up the water main that we need in the northern part of the county so we can actually have commercial development.
Here's Lake Monticello. What do you-
well, we're going to get it. It's
It's not big enough, though.
well. I don't know if we got enough time to talk about
And
this.
then what that's doing to the James
I don't know if
River
we
and
wanna
a
open
bunch
this
of
Pandora's
property
box.
owners
Yeah.
that live down there.
To make a long story short, you're within 18 to 36 months, there will be the James water flowing into Zion's Crossroads. You're 100% right. The one that they built for $20 million only handles 80,000 gallons of water a day.
Yeah.
You and I drink that in bourbon on a regular basis.
So Woody, your final take for the buyers and sellers that are watching here. It's a turbulent market. Offer a message to everybody that's watching and listening.
Take a deep breath, folks. If you're looking to buy, go buy. I mean, the rates are still historically great. I don't know that I would, if I needed to move right now, I wouldn't have a problem, getting a 5% mortgage. That doesn't bother me that much. Although I'm at 2 now, so I don't think I'll ever move at this point. Unless
That's a great rate.
Unless Lake Monticello decides to go
Let's
crazy.
sit down and talk. I might be able to talk you into moving a little bit. But look, the other thing which we didn't get to, guys, we'll save this for the next show. We're at 2.5% unemployment in our region. I'm wondering what impact that's having on the housing market and the overall market. We'll save that topic for the next show. But
Number one driver for residential real estate. So
there you go. That was a short version of it.
Neil Williamson, Greene County and Fluvanna County collect lodging tax, but the enforcement is not as vibrant, in quotes, as Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Thank you, Neil, for offering that perspective.
I just don't know if we have a hotel in Fluvanna County.
Isn't one coming?
No, so that's in
That's Louisa?
That's in Louisa. All
Is the
that
Motor Lodge still on Fort Union?
is that even still open?
I don't know. That's
don't
my
think
Kevin
so.
Higgins says there's no hotels in Western Albemarle.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Wedding destination and there are no
I,
hotels in
I,
Western
I
Albemarle?
never understood that.
But that type of development, unless it's done intentionally the right way, it's going to take away from the appeal of the bucolic nature of that part of the county, though.
I don't. We were speaking about Albemarle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have to be part of some sort of development. There may have been a pad site that is now moved into something else at Old Trail that I thought would have been a great hotel on that. It was set up for it. I think it turned into an apartment complex, if I remember correctly, on that end of it. That's where you would put a hotel site where all the services are and so forth.
Lori says, no, sir, we're not moving.
What do you have the closest things? Like, what's the Howard Johnson that used to be on Skyline Drive?
It's been vacant for 100 years.
The hotel that is like, well, I don't know what they're doing with it, where that water tower is when you're going over the mountain.
Yeah, that's been that way for 35 years.
For a long time.
I think there's some crazy brownfield thing going on up there, if I remember.
There's something going on there because I do amateur photography. So sometimes if the sun's setting the right color, I'll go up there and take photos. There's people going in and out of there. I don't know what for, but
well, there's that. What is it? What's that building that's up there?
Swannanoa.
Swannanoa.
It's the sister to Maymont, from when people were like real barons and building like.
It's actually a pretty cool structure.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing.
Did the Fork Union Motor Lodge close?
So no.
That hotel?
So maybe yes and maybe no yes. So I know
Kevin's talking about that.
Yeah.
Now.
So Fork Union Military Academy bought it, and that I know for a fact. And they use it for when the
parents
That's
come.
for the parents come.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not open. So that's a great question. I've been living there for 30. I don't think there is a actual hotel in Flavanna
I don't think
County.
there is.
Wow.
So if you've got a room tax, a hotel tax, but no hotels.
Which is odd.
Excuse me?
That's odd.
Well, maybe they've set it up for the future.
There's plenty of room on the southern side of the exchange at Zion's to build some
There
hotels.
really is. There really is. It's all,
Yeah.
I've been talking about that
All
for
right,
20 years.
so how about them Mets? So that's a topic for another day. It is. I know Jerry's got another show to do, and as usually these things run way.
Because we're having fun.
We're having fun.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
Woody, you were great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Woody Fincham, guys, is great. Scott Morris is always great. Ross Mortgage, guys, and Keith Smith is fantastic. Keith, Friday show.
So Friday show. Thank you for asking. We're actually, yes, Realty partner. We're being part of a car show on Saturday that we're going to be. The proceeds are going to be supporting the Albemarle County Police Foundation. So we're going to bring in a couple of agents, an insurance guy, and Chris Eagle from our office, and we're going to talk that up a little bit. And
Founding partner? Founding partner, is that what you call it?
No, I think
Charter partner.
Charter, yeah.
Charter partner.
I think founding would be
Yonna, and Quinn.
Chris has got a big car show coming up this weekend. doesn't he?
That's what he's talking
That's
about.
what I'm talking about. Maybe it's just Yonna and Quentin, and I just tag along on the founding part
Charter
of that. Charter
Yeah.
partners on that.
We love Chris Eagle.
But we're excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And normally on Fridays we do some political roundtables, so this is going to be fun. And we're going to tie together how, like we did today, how the insurance and the real estate work together. So we're excited about it.
He's Keith, Scott, Woody. Judah's our director. I'm Jerry. This is Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented by Ross Mortgage on a Wednesday. Thank you kindly for joining us, guys. Have a good morning. Take care.
Woody, thank you.
Woody.
Yeah, good
excellent.
show, man. Fantastic.
That was fun.